Hello everyone, my name is Heather and welcome to the channel Bookables. Today I am here to share with you all of the books I read in the month of August. August was a bit of a fail for me, I'm not gonna lie. I only read 6 books, which in retrospect is not that bad, but for me, I've been averaging around 8 to 10, maybe like around 8. But either way, it wasn't that good of a reading month. I didn't really have a really big standout book this month. I kind of read a lot of like so-so ones, and so I think that kind of just made me feel like it wasn't a super successful reading month. So as always, I'm gonna start with my least favorite book, working up to my favorite, and yeah, this will probably be short and sweet because I only have 6 books to talk about, and I've done a reading vlog and a book review video, so I feel like I've talked about these books in length in different other videos, which I will link down below. First up, we're going to start with my least favorite one. And once again, it just goes to show you how, sometimes your expectations are just thrown out the window. My least favorite book this month is sadly Good Bad Girl by Alice Feeney. I loved Alice Feeney's books last year. Daisy Dark Girl was one of my favorite books in the entire year, honestly. It was very atmospheric. It had a great setting. I just loved it. So I was very excited to read this one, and sadly, I did not like it. This is very convoluted. It's like the beginning, it says it's like 20 years ago, a baby was stolen from a stroller, and then 20 years later, a woman is found dead in a nursing home, and somehow these two are connected, and you follow a slew of different people. There is a 80-year-old woman living in a nursing home that is kind of put there against her will. You also follow her daughter who has put her there. You also follow a caretaker that works at the nursing home, and somehow all of these people are interconnected, and it wasn't it for me. I didn't love the plot that much. It was just kind of meh. I don't really have much to say about it. I will continue reading Alice Feeney's books because I do enjoy her books. But I think what's great about Alice Feeney is her settings usually are really great. And this one for me didn't do it, the characters nor the setting. So sadly, I gave it a 2.5 out of 5. I'm not happy about it, so I'm just going to move on. Next up, we have another author that I really enjoy, but I didn't love their latest book, and that is Dark Corners by Megan Golden. This is the sequel to the book The Night Swim, which I read a couple years ago, really enjoyed. Again, setting was great, atmospheric. It had a podcast element to it, which I love in thrillers. This one, I didn't love the mysteries that were going on behind it. If you don't know, this series follows Rachel, who is a podcast host. She has like her own kind of crime podcast, and the first book, she is covering a podcast. She's covering a trial that's happening in a small town, like an ocean town. And she also does another mystery kind of unfolding. In this one, it takes place in Florida, and she is trying to figure out where this social media influencer has gone, and she kind of goes into the social media influence life and goes to like this con, and it just was not great. I did not love it. I gave it a 3 out of 5. It was just kind of so-so. Next up is one that's probably going to break a lot of your guys' heart, and that is Divine Royals by Rebecca Ross. I bought this, number one. The cover, astounding. Gold, work of art. And I heard about it, and I also bought it because everyone's been talking about it on TikTok. I do kind of try to follow the trends with that. If people are talking a lot about a book, I will read it just to see if it kind of holds up. In this case, I don't think it does. This is a YA book, which again, I also did not know. This is also pitched as a fantasy, like a kind of magical realism book, and it's really not. It is more a World War II book. It's about these two characters. What are their names? Iris and Roman, and basically there are these gods in this book, and for years, centuries, they've been sleeping. Now they've woken up and a war has started. Iris's brother goes off to war to fight for one of the gods, and she gets a job working at a paper, and she has a kind of nemesis of the paper named Roman. They're both trying to get this one job, and with that, she types up letters, and she like types them to her brother and puts them like in her like kind of like her closet, like of Narnia, if you will, like her bureau, and they just disappear, and letters will come back, and it's somebody that's not her brother. You can probably put 2 and 2 together. It's kind of got You've Got Mail vibes, but it's very much a historical World War II fiction, which is not to say that's bad at all. I don't usually love historical books, like I'm kind of so-so on them, but this one, I think it was just pitched as like this magical realism about war, about gods, and you really didn't get any of that. Like, it was barely like, I often forgot we're set in this fantastical world, because it would be everything. They would just be talking about writing about the paper and, doing things, and, kind of they go off and like be kind of war correspondents, and then all of a sudden like this monster will fly overhead, and I'm like, what? And I'm like, oh yeah, we're in this fantasy world. And I'm like, this doesn't kind of compute. It was okay. I gave it a 3.5. The writing is beautiful. A lot of people have said it's very poetic and beautiful, and it is. Will I continue off the series? I don't know. I kind of want to, just for the covers. I know that's kind of shallow to say, but like, it was okay. I just don't think it's like it needs to be as hyped as everyone else has said. But you could say that with a lot of books that have become on TikTok. I agree with some of them, and I don't agree with some of them. This is one that I just feel like it could be great for a lot of people. For me, it was just kind of mediocre. And yeah, I don't know. That's 3.5. Wasn't horrible by any means. It just wasn't quite what I expected. I expected something magical and fantastical with a lot of like kind of you've got mail hidden angst type of thing. And it delivered on some fronts, and it didn't deliver on some fronts. So again, 3.5 out of 5. I have a nonfiction book. I'm putting this in here for this because I did finish reading it this month, and I when it gets to the end of the year, you gotta freaking add anything you can to your Goodreads goal, you know what I'm saying? Find Your People by Jenny Allen. Like I said, this is a nonfiction Christian book, which I'm trying to get more into reading again. I'm trying to get into a habit every night. It took me all month, but that's okay. I read like half a chapter a night, and it was great. So this one is basically building deep community in a lonely world. So this one really talks about kind of finding your village. I think we live in a world today where sometimes we kind of have superficial friendships, and you want to go deep with those friendships. You want to find that village. You want to find those people that will be there for you in the trenches no matter what. And I feel like I have those people, but I felt like I really need to work on my relationship with them to go deeper, and I really do think this book helped with that. I would say this book is more beneficial to somebody that's really trying to find their people in general. Like, if you're just starting from scratch, or maybe you realize I don't have a lot of like really deep friends, a lot of people that are there for me. This one can really help you with that. And it is religious, so it does talk a lot about finding really good spiritual friends. I have 2 amazing friends that I love so deeply, and we talk all the time, and we're always saying today was a hard day, it was a rough day, pray for me. And we're always exchanging, highs in our life and lows in our life, and we try to be as transparent as possible. And that is exactly what I need in my life. And if you're somebody that's looking for something like that, this book is great to help you kind of guide and kind of help you strengthen those relationships, and maybe just help you find them in general. So I liked it. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I would recommend. I do like her other book that I read that came out before this one. I think it was called Get Out of Your Head. It was a good one. Then we have a fun one. My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine. I love this one. This is a great palate cleanser. It's a great one to read, and you just need something not too serious, but something fun. It's literally what the title says. You have a character named Cassie who is getting kicked out of her apartment. She needs to find one. She finds this great apartment ad on Craigslist for a roommate in this beautiful Chicago apartment, and it's not asking for a lot of money. And she's like, there's got to be a catch. And you know what? There is. She meets her roommate, and his name is Frederick J. Fitzwilliam, and he dresses like he's from a Regency novel, and he's just so nice to her, and he leaves letter under her doorsteps. But there's some weird things about him. Like, he doesn't have any cookware. She doesn't see him during the day. And then, one day she finds the fridge full of blood. So, you could put 2 and 2 together that Frederick, our dear Frederick, is a vampire. And he has been asleep the past century, so he needs somebody to help him guide him into the modern century. And it is just a fun, romantic vampire time. If you guys don't know, vampire is a huge buzzword for me. So anything that has to do with vampires, my bat ears go up, and I'm like, I need to read this ASAP. And I loved it. It was fun. I mean, it doesn't take vampire too seriously. They talk about Buffy in it. 4 out of 5. Really had a good time. It's a great one to read if you're just looking for something fun, romantic, and again, kind of just light, good palate cleanser. My favorite book I read this month is Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis, a historical that doesn't really feel like a historical. It takes place, I believe, in the 1950s and 1960s, and it's all about a chemist named Elizabeth Zott. And she is a single mom, and like I said, she's a chemist, and she gets the opportunity to host like a cooking show. And so she does, and she adds a lot of chemistry into it, and that's against kind of the status quo at the time, because, you know, in the 50s and 60s, it's a woman's role is a homemaker, to raise the kids, to cook dinner, to keep the house super neat, like, you know, do 50,000 things at once. And it's still impossible to this day, but, you know, society doesn't care. It does talk a lot about some serious things in this book. In fact, when I reviewed this in my last book review video, a lot of people were like, you said it was light and funny, but there's a lot of deep things to it, and you're 100% right on that. There are topics of like sexual abuse and rape, and those are very serious things that happened then and that are still happening now. So just know going that into it. But overall, the tone of it is kind of light and funny, because she's just a woman trying to prove herself in a man's world. Nobody takes her seriously because she's a female chemist and she wants to prove herself constantly. And, you know, she talks about salt whenever, you know, she talks about salt, she calls it sodium chloride, which I found very odd and very hilarious. But she turned her kitchen into a laboratory. Like, I felt like I was watching Dexter's Laboratory. But it was just a good book. I would highly recommend it. I gave it a 4 out of 5. It was very enlightening. It shows that, especially for women in STEM, times have not changed, but I really enjoyed it. I think it's well worth your I think it's well worth your time. I know this won like the Goodreads award. I want to say, was it last year or the year before? But I really liked it. Again, 4 out of 5. Enjoyed it. Those are the 6 books I read this month. Like I said, it was an okay reading month. I read a couple of books that I really enjoyed, but for the majority, the books I read this month were kind of eh. So maybe that's why I didn't read that much. But either way, September is here, baby, and it is time for all the fall and atmospheric and spooky reads, and I am freaking ready for it, if you can't already tell. This is all I can do with my seasonal background. Hopefully it'll get better, but maybe I'll film in a different location because I've got to have my fall decor, people. We all know this. But either way, I would love to know if you've read any of these books, what you liked about them, what you didn't like about them, and as well. And yeah, let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.